And welcome on in, everybody. Good to see you all. What's going on? A way to cuff our moderators in chat. I see General Kenobi, Frank, Tim, Matthew. I think I saw Annika in there. Ted, one of our mentors. What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing well. We got another week of challenges ahead of us. Enlightened to what's going on. Welcome on in. So just a heads up that we'll be doing challenges Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday we're actually going to have a review day. So if anyone has any questions from any of the challenges that we've been doing throughout these 2 weeks, or anything you want me to cover, or any thoughts like that, just let me know. But Friday we'll just be kind of doing no formal challenge, just talking about some things. I can demo anything if need be, answer questions, all that kind of stuff. So I am Sam Peterson. I'm your host for today's Photoshop challenge. And today we're going to be creating a neon text effect. So kind of a classic neon sign sort of look, how you can create some glows and stuff like that in Photoshop. So let's jump over into Photoshop and I'll show you what we're working with. I'll show you what we're going to be creating. So we're going to be creating something a little bit like this. You can kind of see what we're working with, just sort of a classic neon sign look. And really you can apply this to anything, shapes, letters, really any things you want to create. These are all done with layer styles, so you'll be able to create the same thing and apply this effect to a wide variety of assets. So first off, let me open this up. All right, what we're going to want to do is darken the background down, because anytime you're creating any sort of glow effects, if you have a really bright background, it's not really going to work. So you want to keep it pretty dark and allow those effects to pop a lot more. Another brick in the wall, exactly. And we're going to darken this down quite a bit now. So let's go into the layer panel at the very top. We're going to go into new adjustment layer and we're going to do exposure. So this is an exposure adjustment layer. And we're going to take the exposure slider and just crank that way down. I'm probably going to take this into like somewhere like that, like 5.5 maybe. That looks pretty good to me. I can close that. At any time, if we want to adjust this, we can just go back into that adjustment layer, double click this icon, pop it up and adjust it. So this is all non-destructive, gives you flexibility, so we don't have to stick with this. Next up, I'm going to want to create my text. So for the text, you can try to find a good font for this. Get creative and use whatever font you want. You can also search for like a neon font on Adobe fonts, but I didn't really find any specific like neon style sign that I liked, or neon style sign font that I liked. So there's two that I kind of liked, and that was Sophia Pro Soft. So I'll just do all caps neon, get my move tool, crank that way up so we can see what we're working with. And then I'm going to duplicate that with Control or Command J, press V for the hotkey for the move tool, Shift click, which will keep it straight down, and just drag it down. I'm going to edit this, my text, highlight all of that. And also I saw that Calibri kind of had a cool look to it as well. Now neither of these are perfect. Calibri is nice because you can actually go into here, and instead of regular, we could do light italic, which has a bit of the thinner look that I'm going for. I want a fairly thin line, but it kind of has these blunt edges. The N is kind of blocky. This one has those rounded edges that I want, but it's very thick. So you could edit either of these, and I'm going to show you some different ways you can edit these texts, just because you're not always going to get exactly what you want. Sometimes you have to make additions and modify things. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the Sophia Pro version here. Now, you don't need to do this, but I'm just going to show you some random stuff you can do if you want to edit this. So first off, I can do Control or Command, click on my layer here, and it'll select the layer. Now you want to make sure you're selecting the little T icon here. You're not selecting Control, clicking that. Nothing will happen. But the little thumbnail, Control or Command, click it. It'll highlight it. And you can do something like select, modify, and contract. We could try something like 30. Let's see how that looks. See how it kind of selects a lot thinner of a selection, the interior. So we could do that and make a little mask, this little mask button here at the bottom. Now this isn't perfect because, you know, this left side is thicker than the center. So what we could even do again is we could contract the selection differently and just modify certain aspects of it. For example, if I do control click, I could do, you can see it's still selecting the original version because we've just masked this out. We do select, modify, contract again, but we could do like 25 instead of 30. See how there's a little buffer around the edges, and if we paint in with white to reveal it, we could kind of bring back the part of the text that is thinner. You just need to kind of get smooth transitions for these, but this is just an example. Control D, and you can use whatever selection tool to kind of mask this out. You can use a brush if you have a tablet. You could use the pen tool if you want to get precise. I'm just going to kind of do this as a quick example, but I could also paint in here with a hard round brush, kind of get a more natural transition. You can also hold on Shift. If you hold on Shift, you can get vertical, you can get horizontal, or if you hold on Shift and click around, you can even get diagonal. So if you need any sort of precise movements with the brush tool, that is an option. But that's what I would do. I would spend just a little time going in here and modifying the text to be exactly what I want it to be. You can use things like the marquee tool. If you hold on Shift, you'll make a circle, and you can hold on spacebar to move it. So you can let go of spacebar to keep resizing, hold on spacebar to move it. Gives you a lot of flexibility. So I could try putting this in place, making it small, and I could just brush in black. Press M for the marquee tool, move it. Press B for the brush tool, M for the marquee tool. You get the kind of what I'm going for there. So I could also duplicate the N once I edit it once. And one last thing I want to do is the effect that neon signs have is typically like they're tubes that are bent and molded to be different letters. So I don't actually know how neon signs work, but my thought is that it's usually one continuous line. That's why you see a lot of cursive neon signs. So the only letter that doesn't fit like one continuous tube being bent is the E. And what I would maybe want to do, just an easy way to do this, hold on Shift to create a circle, make sure it's about the same width, maybe a little bit bigger, and then position that where I want by holding spacebar and dragging it around. Controller Command Shift I to invert your selection, and I can just paint over the edge there. And then again, I could hold on Shift to get a straight line up and down. So we kind of have like a separate tube for that letter, and I think that works pretty well. Now you can edit this as much or as little as you need to. I did have like a pre-made one where I cleaned it up a bit more, but I think the one we made is actually looking pretty good too. So let's go, I'll go with my pre-made one, because it is a little bit cleaner. Let me drag that down out of my asset folder. There we go, we'll scale that up a little bit. And we are good to go. So those are just some techniques if you need to edit text, or if you ever need to do that with any assets. You have flexibility, it just takes a little while to clean up. But if you want the most precise results, it'd probably be the pen tool in my opinion. That also does take a little bit of time. So, you know, do it as much or as little as you want. Use a default font, whatever works. So let's see where we are. Here we can add the glow effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click my text layer here to get the layer styles open. And from here we can start adding some glows. So I'm going to start with an outer glow, and I'm going to make this kind of a blue color. So right now it's this pink. I'm just going to slide into the blues, kind of see what sort of blue-green I want. I think that looks pretty good. And you can see I'm using like max brightness, max saturation here. Click OK. So that's our outer glow. The settings we have for this are 60 opacity. Play around with these as much as you want. I'm actually going to zoom in on this a bit more so you guys can see it a little bit more successfully. So outer glow, pick that blue again that I like. Click OK. I have my opacity at 60. It's just how bold and strong that effect is. The spread I have at 2 or 1. Doesn't really make too much of a difference, but I want the spread pretty low. And the size is how far that glow is expanding outward. So I had about 80, and I think that looks pretty good. And then the range and the jitter we can leave alone. But I have this blend mode set to screen. Now you can try different ones. You try color dodge, or I think linear dodge look pretty good. Very similar to screen, but I'm going to be using screen for this. So then from there, we can go to an inner glow. And one thing I don't like about the outer glow, or the current look of it, is there's not really like a rounded look to the text. It doesn't look like it's a tube that has 3-dimension. So I was going to use inner glow as a way to modify that a little bit. I'm going to put this on like the same blue. I could actually copy the hex code, but I'll just eyeball it. Click OK. And then I have the blend mode here set to multiply and the opacity set to 60. You can kind of set that wherever you want. It's not a huge difference, but you can kind of see, do you see that form almost wrapping around the edges? We're getting a little bit of shadow on the edges. And that's what kind of gives us that more 3-dimensional look. So I had it at 60, maybe I'll put it at 70. The choke is at 0, the size is at 16. If you go too high on the size, it covers the entire thing and loses the effect. So I would put it just until you still see some white in the center. The size, see how that's enveloped the whole text? It kind of loses the 3D look. But this is going to be different for everyone's text depending on the thickness you choose. So kind of goes so there's still some lightness in the center and shading just around the edges. And again, you can see that the source is set to edge rather than center. We're going to have it on edge, which will give us that effect where it's peeking in from the edges. So have it on edge and put the size just to where it starts leaving a little bit of white in the middle. So I'm going to click OK. And actually, I still have more stuff I want to add. So I'm going to double click that again to open my layer styles. I'm going to do drop shadow. And the drop shadow, I imagine, is because the back of the, I've seen this effect on some neon signs, but I think the back of the tube is actually opaque and just the top part of the tube is the light emitting part. I feel like the shadow gives it a little bit more dimension. So I'm gonna have my blend mode set to multiply. Our angle is pretty much just top down, so somewhere around 90, give or take. Distance, I have set to 100. I just want it dropping off the text a little bit. Spread is 1 and size is 43. The size is really just the sharpness. So I kind of liked where it was at 40, 43. And for the multiply color, by the way, I have this sort of mid-tone gray. This is a thing I always use with my multiply layers. I use kind of a slightly purple shadow. It's a cool shadow. That's why I do that. Fairly desaturated, mid-tone, roughly. You can see it's kind of in the purple hue range. That's not too strict, but just so you know what I'm using and why I use it. And we can click OK. So those are our layer styles that give us our initial glow. Hey, what's up, Peter? Good to see you. Welcome on in, everybody. Bruce. Hey, Bruce. I've seen where they add little tubes throughout the letters, connecting all of them together. Yeah, for sure. And we're going to kind of do an effect like that, like the like cables, the power cables running through. Hey, what's up, Viola? Good to see you as well. So let's jump into the next step. We're going to create the same sort of effect, but on a frame. So I'm going to click and hold over my shape tools over here. And I'm going to go to my rectangle tool. I'm going to drag that around my text. And I think that looks pretty good. I can resize this if I need to, adjust it. And what I want to do for this stroke is I want to create white. Because again, we created the white text. And then we added the layer styles to get the color. It's kind of like a lightsaber. The center of the lightsaber is actually white, but it's the colored glow that you see around it. That's an effect you see with most glow effects, is the very brightest center point is pretty much white. So from here, I want to just get the thickness that looks the best to me. Try 20, let's try 30. 30 is too much, let's try 25. I think that looks pretty good, something like that. And what I want to do is I want to drag these little corner markers. See this little circle? You can actually control how soft or hard those edges are. So I'm going to do that. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to move this up, and I'm going to apply the same effects that we just did. But to save a little time, I'm going to right click on our text. I'm just going to call this text. I'm going to right click the layer styles and do copy layer style. And then I'm going to go over to my rectangle and do paste layer style. And now we get the same effects without having to do it all over again. I'm going to double click that to enter the layer styles, and I'm just going to change the color. So the outer glow, I don't actually want it to be blue. You can choose whatever colors you want, but I kind of like the idea of this sort of pink purple look. I'm going to copy this hex code, Control C or Command C. And I'm going to go into inner glow. That's more of the shadow. It says glow, but we're kind of using it as a shadow. I'm going to paste the same thing. And that looks pretty good. I like that. So now we got kind of a neon sign look, but we got more to do to sell this a little bit more. So from here, where are we? Yeah, so what we could do is we could play around with adding more of a glow effect if we wanted to. I think originally what I did with this rectangle was I duplicated it, and I actually went into outer glow, and I changed the size quite a bit. So this is doubling up the effect because the original one gives us this tight inner glow, which gives us a lot of color, some dense color around the edges, which I think looks really good. But if we duplicate and add another one, we could actually go in and play with the size and kind of get a secondary glow. I could even crank it up all the way to 250, maybe around like 200, 210. And if I toggle that on and off, you can see it just increases a little bit more. So we could always do that if you want to double it up if you feel like you're not getting enough. Yeah, so this text was Sophia Pro Soft. All right, so what we're going to do next is another method for making that glow even a little bit more powerful. I just showed you one method, but this one allows us to a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more the ability to paint it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create Controller Command Shift N, new layer. I'm going to call this glow blue, and I'm going to set that to a linear dodge blending mode. See this linear dodge right here? Click that. I'm going to Controller Command J to duplicate that, and I'm just going to call this glow pink. So both of these should be linear dodge. And what I can do with a soft round brush is I can actually kind of paint in some glow. But what might be easier is if we just fill this in. So first I'm gonna find a glow. I'm gonna use a soft brush here, and I pick a similar pink. Thing about linear dodges, it is very bold and intense. So try to find like a glow color that you think looks pretty good. And we're not gonna go that heavy-handed on it, but we're gonna do something more like that. So this sort of fully saturated mid-tone purple, I think, is working all right. So I'm going to do Control A, delete, just to select all that. Control D to deselect. And this, I'm going to select my my glow pink. I can fill this in, and then I can mask it fully out. I'm going to fill this in with black, and that way we can just use white and black to reveal and hide the effect. So white reveals, black conceals, but with a very light flow, if you're using a mouse, I recommend trying to get a very light flow with a big soft round brush. The bigger size of the brush, you're going to get more of a gradual gradient. You can kind of pump up the glow there, like that. And you can always mask that in or out with black and white. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn that off for a second. I'm going to find a good blue. Good blue effect. That actually looks pretty good to me. I'm kind of using the same value, I just changed the hue. Yeah, I like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill the entire thing in with blue. Click the little mask button at the bottom of the layers panel to mask that. And then I'm gonna fill that mask in with black. You can also do Alt Option Delete to fill the layer in with the current color. And then I'm gonna go to white to reveal it and just paint in lightly a little bit of extra glow around the center with a soft round brush. So those are just some techniques for glow. If you feel like you went too heavy on any of them, you could always lower the opacity too. You can mess with the mask. A lot of ability to fine tune that. You could even kind of get like a blinking neon light effect with this, animating this on or off. So I'm going to turn the opacity of the pink one down to maybe like 60. Let's see here. If I really wanted to boost this even more, I could group these together, these glow effects. Basically, all my layers here, my glow layers and then my text layers. Put those in their own group, and I'll just call this glow. So those are kind of all our glow layers. But before we edit that, I think I will go over something else just for the sake of time. Because we could add some exposure layers to this, some level adjustment layers, just to boost that contrast even more. And we'll do that if we have time, but let me go over how we would add some wiring to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my pen tool. And this is just if you want an effect like there's cables running in the back. I did include some stock cables here, and you could cut these out. You could use the object selection tool, edit the white background to remove it and mask it out, and then use something like the puppet warp tool to kind of warp it into place. But honestly, I find that doing it with the pen tool gives you a really good result and looks just as good, but is easier to control. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some cables here. And if you're not familiar with the pen tool, it's really just clicking and holding. You can drag these handles out to create smooth curves. So when I click, I'm clicking and then I'm kind of bending this until I get clicking and dragging until I get the curve that I want. But I actually sketched this out ahead of time. So like the path I want the cables to take. So that might be actually worth planning out. But I'll try to do this fairly quickly just for the sake of time. I'm just kind of having this cable run throughout the shape here. And I'm not going to want it to be this color, but it's nice because it is easier to see. Let's try that again. So I was going to have two cables going throughout, kind of strung in a different part of it. Maybe the other one would be running along the bottom, and then they both kind of sync up at the beginning and end. But I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to put the stroke to, let's see, I think I was using white for that. And then from here we could go in, we could change some things. We could add an inner glow. Let me see here. I'm going to pick like a mid-tone gray, or maybe even a darker gray. We might have to go pretty dark for this. For the stroke, maybe I actually want to select, let's see, try a gray color, something a little bit darker. Yeah, that's good. And actually, I might want to make this a bit thicker too. I have 13 point, but maybe like 20, just to make it a little more prominent. We'll double click the layer style. We'll go into inner glow. And let's see, we'll do multiply. Opacity, I'm going to make that a bit more prominent. Crank that all the way up to 100. The noise, we'll keep it 0. We have this gray that's maybe like 1/3 from black. Or yeah, 1/3 from black. Size 16, I think I like that. We could try playing around with the size. Again, you don't want to go too high because you want the center of it to still kind of be white for that three-dimensional look. And then we want to add a drop shadow onto that, but the drop shadow, we don't want nearly as far. So the distance, maybe like 18. That looks a lot better. Spread is 1, size, I don't want a big size. I kind of want a tighter shadow because it's right up against the wall. So I'll do something like 10. So anyway, we are out of time. I would put this on the very bottom. Let's see here, on top of the exposure layer. Actually, no, we probably want that beneath the exposure layer here. Come on, computer, you can do it. So from here, you just want to adjust the lighting to your liking. You can see these kind of added the effects we needed, so it's more in the background, and we can put all the effects on top of that. I would probably lighten it up a bit because now it's a bit dark, so the color of the actual line I would boost up a bit. But we are out of time. If you have any questions, let me know in the Discord. I'll be back tomorrow for another challenge, and check out the Discord if you haven't. This is where we post all the challenges. I give feedback. You can get feedback from the community. You can give it to others. Definitely check it out. That's where we'll be. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see y'all next time.